Hello from Ahmed again. Quarantine all around, really strict restrictions, nothing really to film. And as you know, I've been filming a lot of diving, but I thought that maybe it's a good idea to put it all together with a clear explanation which dive sites are where located. I'm gonna start with the Kubu and we'll go all the way to Gili Selang. I haven't been filming anything from Japanese wreck and all the Gili Selang this year, but I will take some footage from the previous ones. Still pretty wavy today, big waves, bad visibility. Okay, I understand it's the evening. In the evenings we always have a bigger waves and it's low tide at the moment, as you can see from the size of the beach. But let's talk about the dive sites. So the first dive site, the farthest dive site from Ahmed we do diving is the Kubu wreck. Starting 2017 when I did the first filming of the Kubu wreck, and it looked really different than today. And in the Kubu we do two dives. The top of the wreck is on 60 and 80 meters, depends on tide. So first of all, you're swimming around the deepest part of the wreck and you see the propeller. Then you come a little bit up and then you go inside the cargo room, and then it means you're going a little bit down. The deepest of this dive is 34-35 meters. Then slowly you're coming up to the place where this old Volkswagen wreck is located. It already, in this year since I'm diving, it already fell apart, but it's still there. The people love to take photos inside it. In the front you can ascend to the next level. The depth is about 24 meters. Then you swim through and then you are on this open deck. And then there are two chimneys. Then you swim up to the upper deck where is imitation of the wheel. And then the people again taking photos there, and then you swim out to the reef. In this point the reef is about 20 meters, and if someone already spent all the non-stop time and if they spend a lot of air, then it's a good turning point. And then you slowly swim to the exit point. Second dive we do in a coral garden, Kubu Coral Garden. It's more like artificial. They made a really good project about all this coral gardening. And there's a lot of artificial stuff. You can see the motorbikes, you can see the bicycles. Then there is like a small patches of the corals, really healthy corals growing now. And I've been making videos about that. The list of those videos you can find in the description. Next dive site we dive is a Liberty wreck, one of the most famous dive sites in Bali. If you heard about diving in Bali, you definitely heard about also Liberty wreck. The stern part of the wreck is only 6 meters below the surface, and that's why it's so popular for the snorkelers and free divers and divers. During the season, sometimes in a good times, there have been 400 people same time underwater. It's nothing really to talk about Liberty wreck because it's so popular, and you will be able to see it in so many videos from so many different people, because everybody who's diving in Bali, they're diving definitely also on a Liberty wreck. I will just give you short information. So the stern part of the wreck is about 6 meters below the surface, and the deepest part of the wreck is about 24-25 meters. Of course you can go to 30-35. There's nothing really to see. There is only some patches of the corals, and sometimes you can see some sharks sleeping. At the moment there are 2 sharks living, so that's mostly everything what you can see at the depth at 30 meters. The most interesting part is actually between 6 and between 20 meters. That's where all the divers diving. That's where you can do all the swimming through the wreck, cargo room. All the fishes are there. Night dives are actually also always organized in that particular part. Next site next to the Liberty wreck is a coral garden, and when we're doing 2 dives, then we usually bring people to the coral garden. It's also really comfortable for the courses, and that's why there are so many divers diving there. And the coral garden is pretty wide. You can do it from the two sides. If they're doing Tulamben wall, so then they're doing coral garden from the left side. If they're doing Liberty Wreck, then they're doing coral garden from another side. There's a lot of fishes living, there's a lot of corals growing. There's also this statues of the sharks, of the bumpheads, and that's the big project between these two dive sites. I mean, between the Liberty Wreck and between the Tulamben wall. The last December I did this long swim from Tulamben Liberty Wreck all the way to Ahmed, and between these places, between Tulamben and Ahmed, there are so many different dive sites. No one is really diving. Maybe someone is diving, but it's not really popular, and it's more popular for the macro. After the Tulamben wall, there is one site where everybody's going by boat. I don't remember the name, but there is one. The next is a Melasti. Then there is a secret wall, which we've been diving pretty often, especially during the quarantine times, because this is really abundant place, and that was the only place where we were able to dive. It's beautiful place there, and especially it's really comfortable and really interesting for the technical dives. It's a lot of things to see, even you go really deep. I think technical divers can easily do some 80-meter dives there and still will be really happy about what they can see there. Sidam by itself is more like a macro site, probably more interesting for the night dives, because then in this place you can see so many different things. Probably it's not that interesting as the Liberty Wreck for the night dive, because in a Liberty Wreck there's a lot of big stuff, but if you are macro lover and you like all the small frogfishes, nudibranchs and other interesting small creatures, so that's the place for you. And the first site, what we're diving here in Ahmed, is a new wreck. It's the speedboat which sank down 2019 in May, and since then we've been diving there for some training reasons, and there is a lot of macro around it. So basically I can use this dive site for sign mount courses, for example, because you can do like a small penetrations, and you can teach people how to put this tank stuff in the front of you and how to get through all the small windows there. But there's also everyone who's doing macro photography, then there's a lot of stuff around it, because this wreck attracts a lot of macro. There's a lot of food for them, because it's in a Melasti area, as I told you, because of ceremonies and because of all these funerals. There's a lot of offerings, which is people let to go into the ocean, and there is a lot of food for these all small creatures. And then all the way to the pyramids, it's all macro sites. It's pretty shallow. Right now actually I'm sitting in the front of one of them. This is our house reef, and it's also macro site. There is no any artificial construction. All right, that was shortly about the Ahmed Tulamben dive sites. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like, smash that like button, follow, subscribe, and see you tomorrow again. Bye.